Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York City jazz trombonist Nick Finzer on his new 2021 CD called Out of Focus. We have talked to Nick quite a bit over the years, and he made the most out of his time in lockdown with the new compilation of songs in the environments of solo, quartet, and trombone ensemble settings. This is on the heels of his 2020 release, Cast of Characters, and we spoke to him about that CD right before March of 2020 and the lockdown, and about his plans of promoting it, which were obviously halted. We discussed this, the new album at length, COVID, and the future at hand. Enjoy.
Man, I got to say, I think you are probably the musician for Neon Jazz that I've interviewed the most. It's always very nice to catch up with you. There's always material out, so thanks for taking a minute.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for wanting to keep talking to me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, and the last time that we spoke was literally your album came out before the pandemic began.
Yes, it was February 29th. It was when it came out. Perfect timing.
Yes. Are you kidding? Yeah. Well, and I guess that's my first question to you is, you know, you have a brand new album that's out now. You know, it's been quite a journey to get to this point. So talk to me a little bit about what happened with you when you found out the world was shutting down. You have a new album out, live shows are going away. What was your reaction and kind of follow-up after that?
Finding out was I was on tour. We had just started like the West Coast run of dates, and there was like a whole, we were on the West Coast, and I was with Luke Pino, the tenor player, on the record, we got super nervous because he wasn't feeling well, and we like went to like an urgent care place, and like there was like a whole like right before we really knew what was going on, and so it was like a really scary like like people wearing like space suits, like kind of seemed like, and all kinds of craziness. And anyway, so we ended up canceling the tour, and it was like it felt really scary at that moment, you know, being not home and trying to figure out what to do next. So luckily everything was fine. Nobody was sick or anything, but so kind of on the road, cancel, go home, and kind of just like feeling a bit defeated, I think, kind of like, what the heck, like all the work that went into that last record. It was called Cast of Characters, and I was really, you know, proud of the compositions and all this stuff, and I was like, and now everything's gone. So I think there was a lot of disappointment and a lot of, you know, angst, I suppose, about it. But then,
yeah,
you know, I just had decided, you know, okay, well, I got to figure out what's next and kind of keep pushing forward. There's nothing else really to do.
You know, the interesting thing about that time is that I talked to so many musicians, and what I started thinking more and more, as I've done this show for, you know, 10 years now, and and I think I have a decent grasp of some of these angles that go into the creativity of the jazz craft. What we went through, what we're going through now with the global pandemic and the unknown and being thrown into things that are uncertain, seems to be the art form that jazz musicians do every night you get on stage. You know, you're getting thrown into the unknown. You got to make the best out of it. Did you feel like there was a part of you that was like, okay, I know what this feels like to a certain degree. I'm going to have to just pick myself up and figure out what I'm going to do from here?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I've operated, you know, my whole life, kind of just throw myself into a whole bunch of situations, doing all different things, and just have to, you know, figure it out as we go. So, you know, it wasn't so much a feeling of like, I'm not going to continue doing anything. It was kind of like, all right, well, how do I shift and pivot to, you know, take advantage of the opportunity to capitalize on all the work I put into, you know, on the digital side of things, you know, the last, you know, 5 years before now and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it was definitely a moment of reflection, just like for everybody, you know.
So speaking of self-reflection, what did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before that's going to make you stronger now as you come out and have a new album and the opportunity for live music?
It took me actually a long time to actually take the time to try to do that self-reflection. I'm a person that kind of spins all the plates at once and kind of runs full speed ahead all the time. And so it really took until probably September, 6 months or so, of continuing to be in that situation before I started to kind of think about things. And I realized, you know, for me that I needed to refocus, you know, and I needed to think about my priorities, like so many people, but just kind of like focus in on the music. Sometimes I let a lot of things, get in the way, distractions, or trying to think about, this or that other like little detail of, running a record label or the teaching that I do and all these things. And I was like, I need to actually make time to focus on doing the thing that I enjoy the most, which is like making music. And sometimes like all the other stuff kind of gets in the way. And I really have a problem. I realized that I have a problem with like just being in perpetual motion, and that I needed to make some space to just be like a little more still, I think, is kind of how I like to think about it. And so that's something I'm still working on, but it's something that I learned that I needed to take some more effort to kind of make reality.
So talk to me about Out of Focus. Is this any kind of indictment on this period that we just lived through, or what does it mean, and what does it mean for you creatively to have this album out after such a wonderful album like Cast of Characters?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I was saying. Like, I just felt like I was totally out of focus, like I had no direction, and I wasn't sure what to do, and this was just a reflection of like anything I could do to like bring that joy back of music making and get a chance to work with people that I hadn't gotten to work with, and record in ways that I hadn't been able to record before, and kind of view it through that lens of like, what can I do rather than what can't I do, with this situation. Because the obvious thing would have been to make another record with the same band and the same people, and I was like, well, I can't do that. What can I do, to improve myself and my musicianship and my creativity within the realm of what's possible, like by myself, or like, can I collaborate with some other musicians that normally aren't available, that maybe couldn't play with me normally, that are in different places and all these kind of things. And so for me, it was a chance to explore something else. I put out a bunch of records with the same band, and a big focus on original music. And so I decided with this project to like really kind of try to put a stamp on some great standards and other tunes that are, from the history that I really like and really like playing, and that I don't often play, just because I'm, touring my records and focusing on those original music. So trying to offer, some different takes on some tunes that, people know. Maybe they don't know all of them, but some of them, like Stardust, of course, it's a classic jazz standard. So I want to just kind of participate in that and, put out there my love of trombone and the sound of the trombone. There's a bunch of tracks on the record that are like multiple trombones. And one track has like 10 trombones, and the version of Mood Indigo with 15 trombones. And so you're just trying to put that sound out there that, I fell in love with so long ago. So it's just me trying to find that joy in the simplicity of just like liking the sound and enjoying that.
What do you ultimately hope? I know it's not something that's always on the forefront of a musician's mind. What's the fan going to take from this? What are they going to perceive? But what are you hoping they get from this? I mean, this project, I think a lot of these albums that are coming out now are a level of it's cathartic. I mean, people are getting back. The world's returning. We've been going through a pretty scary time on planet Earth. So what do you ultimately hope the listener gets from what you've created on this project?
Yeah, I hope they'll just be able to connect with me and my music on a different level. I think sometimes you get pigeonholed sometimes as someone that, does original music, or like maybe isn't, valuing the history or something like that. And so I hope they just enjoy like a different take on some tunes that they already know. I hope they can just hear a document of like what it was for me during this time, and it's definitely like more of like an individual statement than like a group statement that I've made in the past with like my whole band and everything. So it's kind of just maybe a little bit different window into what's going on in my brain, as scary of a place as that might be.
Now that we've been away from music for so long and we're getting back to it, what do you hope both musician and the audience realizes about this long absence away from live music?
Well, just how essential it is to feel the vibrations of the music, and that there's such a big difference between hearing the sound waves and feeling the sound waves, and maybe that doesn't hit people quite clearly what I mean, but there's something about feeling the vibrations of live instruments that like it changes your state, it changes your mental state, your physical state. I can think of countless times where I've been sick, and the best thing that I could do was just to play my instrument, and that those vibrations are, in a way, they heal you in a certain kind of way. And I hope that especially listeners will take away that, like, man, this is like a really essential part of enjoying music, is seeing it live in person and experiencing the like super high level of creativity and human mastery that goes into playing this music. You know, it's interaction, it's like a kind of almost, you know, mental connection, like anticipating what people are doing, and it's just there's so much going on if you're like thinking about it even from like the brain standpoint. There's so much happening, and it's just so amazing, and there's so many art forms that that they do on their own, and they refine, and it comes out with these amazing products. That's like jazz is just visceral in the moment, and it's like creativity, like in the moment, like nothing else that, at least that I participate in or have seen.
I've spent a lot of time talking to musicians about what does it mean to have this door closed, and we don't know when the door is going to open, but thankfully now that proverbial door is opening up and live shows are happening. Tell me a little bit about your itinerary and what is on the horizon for you with the album and the prospect for more of our world getting to a point where we can get out and about.
Yeah, so I'm focusing with this album. I wasn't planning to tour it or anything because it was kind of a self-isolated project, and so I'm going to do some live stream shows of the music, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's one on the 15th of November, and then I'm going to probably do it again after that. But I am looking ahead. I'm looking ahead to next year already, and got some stuff with I play with Anat Cohen and her Tentet, and there's some dates in San Francisco at SF Jazz in the first quarter of next year, and there's some other projects. Kind of this whole pandemic period kind of made me kind of start thinking about future projects, and so I kind of have like a big band project on the way, and I've got another project with my sextet, and so I'm deep in the writing mode right now. Have an agent that's working on some stuff for Europe next summer, so I'm kind of in like a little self-imposed hibernation still, trying to look forward to getting some future projects out and all that kind of thing. So I'm glad things are starting to open up and I just kind of had given up on booking myself for a while. As many people maybe experience, it's kind of like, I don't want all this to get canceled again, because I had so many things booked and they got canceled. I'm just kind of waiting until, you know, things are actually happening, and I have evidence. You know, we played a couple weeks ago in Connecticut, and so I was like, all right, I have physical, tangible evidence that gigs are coming back. I went to Europe back in the beginning of October, so, you know, I'm like, all right, things are happening, so now I'm back on the train and getting things moving. But as you know, it's a little slow. So, you know, things will be back up and rolling probably by next summer.
Nick, hey, thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the process and the new album. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, Joe. Always good to reconnect with you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Nick for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.